The stars had never looked so far away as they did from the bridge of the UES Endeavour. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace fade into the black void of normal space. After 3 months of traveling faster than light, they had finally reached their destination. Nexus Prime, the legendary meeting place of the Galactic Council, hung in the darkness like a massive silver wheel spinning slowly around a dead star. Jake had dreamed of this moment his entire life. Humanity had finally broken free from Earth's gravity well, mastered faster-than-light travel, and made contact with alien civilizations. The messages had been brief but clear. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with representatives from Earth. They wanted to decide if humanity was ready to join the greater galactic community. "Captain Morrison, we're receiving docking instructions from the station," said Lieutenant Pete Collins from the communications station. His voice carried the same mixture of excitement and nervousness that had infected the entire crew since they left Earth. "Acknowledged, Lieutenant. Take us in slowly. Let's not give them any reason to think we're hostile." Jake turned to address the woman standing beside him. "Ambassador Carter, are you ready for this?" Lisa Carter had been chosen to represent humanity because of her skill in negotiations and her calm demeanor under pressure. She had spent years preparing for this moment, studying what little information Earth had about alien cultures. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to witness. The docking bay of Nexus Prime was enormous, easily large enough to hold 100 ships the size of the Endeavour. As their ship settled into the designated berth, Jake could see other vessels that defied human understanding. Some looked like living creatures with organic curves and pulsing lights. Others appeared to be made of pure crystal that reflected the station's lights in brilliant rainbows. One ship seemed to be nothing more than a cloud of gas held together by some invisible force. "My God," whispered Dr. Patricia Wells, the mission's chief scientist. "Look at those ships. The technology required to build something like that crystalline vessel must be thousands of years ahead of ours." Ambassador Carter straightened her formal diplomatic uniform and checked her translation device one final time. The device had been programmed with every language pattern and communication method Earth's computers could analyze from the initial contact messages. She hoped it would be enough. "Remember, everyone," she said to the small diplomatic team that would accompany her, "we're not just representing ourselves today. We're representing all of humanity. Our entire species' future depends on how this meeting goes." The airlock cycled open and the human delegation stepped onto Nexus Prime for the first time. The station's interior was even more impressive than its exterior. The corridors were wide enough for creatures much larger than humans, and the walls seemed to pulse with a soft, warm light. The artificial gravity was perfectly calibrated, and the air mixture was exactly what humans needed to breathe comfortably. Their escort arrived within minutes. Jake had expected something alien, but he was still unprepared for the reality. The being that approached them looked like a tall, thin humanoid made of living silver. Its surface reflected everything around it like a mirror, and it moved with a grace that seemed to defy physics. "Greetings, humans from the world called Earth," the being said, its voice somehow coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I am Designate 47 of the Reflective Collective. I will guide you to the council chambers where your evaluation will take place." The word evaluation sent a chill through the human delegation, but Ambassador Carter maintained her diplomatic composure. "Thank you, Designate 47. We're honored to meet with the Galactic Council." As they walked through the station's corridors, Jake noticed other beings moving about their business. Some floated through the air like jellyfish swimming through water. Others walked on legs that seemed to be made of living metal. A few appeared to be nothing more than balls of energy with crude faces drawn in light. Each species was so different from humanity that it was difficult to believe they had all evolved in the same universe. The council chambers were vast beyond human imagination. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above, and the walls curved away into shadow. At the center of the room was a raised platform surrounded by 12 massive seats, each designed for a different alien species. The seats were already occupied. Jake felt his breath catch in his throat as he looked upon the rulers of the galaxy. The Zephyrians floated in their designated space like living clouds of purple and gold gas. The crystalline hegemony's representative appeared to be a walking mountain of diamond that caught and reflected the chamber's lights. The hive mind collective seat was occupied by hundreds of insect-like creatures that moved in perfect unison. Speaking with one voice, other species were equally impressive and terrifying. The thermal dynasts glowed with the heat of small suns. The quantum shapers seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, their forms constantly shifting and changing. The eternal scribes looked like living books with pages that fluttered in. A breeze that didn't exist at the center of the arrangement, floating in a space that seemed to bend light around it, was Elder Vexthanos of the Zephyrians. As the current speaker of the council, he would lead the proceedings. When he spoke, his voice filled the chamber like distant thunder. Humans of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council to be judged. For 10,000 years we have maintained peace among the stars. We have prevented wars, stopped genocides, and guided young species toward enlightenment. Today, we must decide whether your species is ready to join this community of peace. Ambassador Carter stepped forward, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Honored council members, humanity comes before you with open hearts and minds. We seek to learn from your wisdom and contribute to the greater good of galactic civilization. Elder Vexthanos' gaseous form swirled with darker colors. Your words are pleasant, human ambassador, but words are not what we judge. We judge actions, we judge history. We judge the very nature of your species. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing images that made the human delegation uncomfortable. Scenes of Earth's wars flashed before them, the burning of cities, the clash of armies, the development of weapons designed to kill millions. The display showed humanity's darkest moments throughout history. Your species has a talent for violence that disturbs us, continued the elder. In the short time you have existed, you have waged thousands of wars. You have destroyed your own environment. You have created weapons capable of ending all life on your world. Even now, as you reach for the stars, you bring weapons with you. Dr. Wells stepped forward, her scientific mind trying to provide context. Elder Vexthanos, humanity has indeed struggled with violence in our past, but we have also made great strides toward peace. We have formed global institutions to prevent war. We have worked together to explore space and seek contact with other species. The Hive Mind Collective spoke in unison, their hundreds of voices creating a sound like buzzing insects. Peace through strength is not true peace. Your species seeks to end conflict through superior firepower. This is the path to galactic war. The crystalline hegemony's representative, a being that looked like a living mountain of diamonds, spoke, with a voice like grinding stone. We have observed species like yours before. They promise peace but bring only chaos. They speak of cooperation but practice domination. The galaxy has paid too high a price for such promises. Ambassador Carter felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. Honored Council, we acknowledge our species' troubled past, but we also ask you to consider our potential. Humanity has the capacity for great good as well. As great evil, given the chance, we can learn to be better. Elder Vexthanos' form darkened further, and his voice carried the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. We have deliberated on this matter for many cycles. The decision of the Council is unanimous. Humanity is too dangerous to be permitted. Among the stars, you are too aggressive, too unpredictable, too quick to resort to violence when faced with challenges. The words hit the human delegation like a physical blow. Jake felt his heart sink as he realized what was happening. They had come so far, hoped for so much, only to be rejected by the very civilizations they had dreamed of joining. Therefore, the elder continued, humanity is hereby banished to your home system. You will not be permitted to travel beyond the boundary of your solar system. A quantum barrier will be erected to ensure your compliance with this decision. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of the human's shocked breathing. Ambassador Carter found her voice first. Please. Elder Vexdanos, reconsider. Humanity has so much to offer. We can change, we can grow, we can become the peaceful species you want us to be. But the Elder's response was cold and final. The decision has been made. Your species will remain in quarantine until such time as you prove you have evolved beyond your violent nature. Should you attempt to breach the barrier, you will be destroyed without warning. As the human delegation was escorted from the chamber, Jake looked back at the assembled council one last time. 3 months had passed since the UES Endeavour returned to Earth with news that changed everything. The quantum barrier had appeared exactly as the Council promised, and now humanity found itself trapped in their own solar system like animals. In a cage, Commander Amy Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the UES Defiance, watching the barrier shimmer in the distance. From this far away, it looked almost beautiful. The quantum field stretched across space like a soap bubble made of pure energy, reflecting the light from the sun in colors that had no names. But Amy knew the truth about this beautiful wall. It was a prison designed to keep humanity locked away from the stars forever. "Ma'am, we're receiving the test results from Probe 7, said Lieutenant Greg Turner from the communications station. His voice was tired and defeated, the same tone everyone had been using since the barrier appeared. Same as all the others? Complete molecular dissolution on contact. Amy closed her eyes and felt the familiar weight of frustration settling in her chest. Probe 7 had been their most advanced attempt yet, equipped with the best shielding technology Earth could produce. It had lasted exactly 3 seconds longer than the previous probe before being torn apart at the atomic level. "Any readings on the barrier's energy signature?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Nothing new, ma'am. The quantum field is stable at all monitoring points. No fluctuations, no weak spots, no way through." Lieutenant Turner paused, then added, "Quietly, it's like they built this thing to be perfect." Amy walked to the command center of the Defiance, the ship that had become humanity's first line of defense against an enemy they couldn't fight. The bridge was busy with activity as technicians and scientists worked around the clock to find some weakness in the barrier. Charts and data streams covered every available screen, showing the same hopeless information over and over again. Dr. Nathan Cross looked up from his workstation as Amy approached. The physicist had aged 10 years in the past 3 months, his hair now completely gray and his eyes surrounded by deep lines of exhaustion. He had been leading the scientific effort to understand the barrier, and the constant failure was taking its toll. "Any progress, Nathan?" Amy asked, though she could see the answer in his expression. "The quantum field is unlike anything we've ever encountered," he said, rubbing his tired eyes. "It's not just a barrier. It's a complete restructuring of space-time around our solar system. Every atom that touches it is immediately broken down into its component particles and dispersed." Amy sat down beside him and looked at the data scrolling across his screen. The numbers meant nothing to her, but she could see the pattern of repeated failure in every test. "Is there any way to get through it?" Nathan shook his head slowly. "Not with our current technology. We would need to advance our understanding of quantum physics by several hundred years, and even then, I'm not sure it would be possible. The Council has had thousands of years to perfect this technology." The weight of his words settled over the bridge like a heavy blanket. Amy had known this was likely the case, but hearing it confirmed made the reality of their situation even more crushing. Humanity was truly trapped, possibly forever. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from Earth Command," announced Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the communications station. "Priority 1? Amy stood and walked to the main view screen as the transmission connected. The face of Admiral Robert Chun appeared, and Amy could see the strain of command written in every line of his features. As the head of Earth's military forces, he had been dealing with the planet's response to the barrier crisis. "Commander Rodriguez, I need a status report on the barrier analysis," the Admiral said without preamble. "The situation down here is getting worse by the day." Amy straightened her uniform and tried to project more confidence than she felt. The barrier remains impenetrable, sir. We've tested 17 different approaches, and none have been successful. Dr. Cross believes we would need technology far beyond our current capabilities to breach it. Admiral Chun's expression darkened. That's not what I wanted to hear, Commander. The riots in New York and London are spreading. People are demanding answers we don't have. Some are calling for immediate surrender to the Council's demands. Others want us to launch a full-scale attack on the barrier. Sir, an attack would be suicide, Amy replied. The barrier would destroy our entire fleet before we could even scratch it. I know that, Commander. But fear makes people stupid, and right now, fear is all we have. The Admiral paused, and Amy could see him struggling with his next words. There's something else. Our intelligence sources have intercepted communications from beyond the barrier. The Council is monitoring everything we do. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Amy felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying they're watching us? Every move we make, every test we run, every conversation we have. The barrier isn't just a prison, Commander. It's a surveillance system. They're studying us like laboratory rats in a maze. Dr. Cross looked up from his workstation, his face pale. That explains some of the energy readings we've been getting. The quantum field is designed to collect and transmit data as well as contain us. Lieutenant Turner spoke up from his station. Sir, we've been detecting strange signal patterns coming from the barrier. We thought it was just quantum interference, but if it's really a monitoring system, then they know everything, Amy finished. They know about our tests, our technology, our military capabilities. They're watching us struggle and learning. From our failures, Admiral Chun nodded grimly. There's more. We've managed to intercept fragments of their communications. The barrier isn't permanent, it's a test. Amy felt her heart skip a beat. A test. The Council has given us 50 years to prove we can evolve beyond our violent nature. If we succeed, they'll consider allowing us to join galactic civilization as a junior member. If we fail, they'll destroy us, Amy said, the words coming out as barely a whisper. The barrier will be collapsed, taking our entire solar system with it. Every man, woman, and child on Earth, Mars, and the space stations will be killed instantly. The Admiral's voice was steady, but Amy could see the fear in his eyes. 50 years, Commander. 50 years to change the fundamental nature of our species or face extinction. The communication ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Amy looked around at her crew and saw the same mixture of despair and anger that she felt burning in her own chest. The Council had not just imprisoned humanity. They had given them an ultimatum that seemed impossible to meet. Ma'am, Lieutenant, Kim said softly, there's something else. We've been monitoring civilian communications, and word is spreading about the 50-year deadline. The panic is getting worse. Amy walked back to the observation deck and stared out at the barrier. The beautiful shimmer of the quantum field now looked sinister, like the walls of a cage designed to hold a dangerous animal. But as she watched, she began to feel something else mixing with her despair, anger, pure, burning anger at the arrogance of the Council. Dr. Cross joined her at the observation window. What do you think will happen now? He asked. Amy was quiet for a long moment, watching the barrier pulse with alien energy. I think the Council just made the biggest mistake in galactic history, she said finally. What do you mean? They think. They understand us. They think they can judge us based on our history and force us to change by threatening us with extinction. Amy turned to face the physicist, and he could see a fire burning in her eyes that hadn't been there before. But they don't understand the most important thing about humanity, which is, we've never been very good at doing what we're told. And we've never been good at giving up when someone tells us we can't do something. Amy looked back at the barrier, and for the first time in 3 months, she smiled. They wanted to see what we would become if they gave us time to evolve. They're going to find out. Over the next few weeks, the mood on the Defiance began to change. The despair and fear were still there, but they were being replaced by something else. Determination. The crew began to work with a new purpose. Not just studying the barrier, but planning for what would come next. Dr. Cross started new research projects, focusing not on breaking through the barrier, but on understanding the technology behind it. If they could learn how the Council's quantum manipulation worked, they might be able to develop their own versions of the technology. Lieutenant Turner began analyzing the intercepted communications more carefully, looking for patterns and weaknesses in the Council's monitoring system. If they were being watched, perhaps they could find a way to watch back. Amy herself started working on something that would have been unthinkable just months before: military plans. Not for defense or escape, but for war. The Council had given humanity 50 years to change, but they had also given them 50 years to prepare. As she worked late into the night, Amy thought about the Council's ultimatum. They wanted humanity to prove they had evolved beyond their violent nature. But what if violence was exactly what would be needed to win this test? What if the Council's mistake was not understanding that sometimes the only way to achieve peace was to be ready for war? The barrier continued to shimmer. In the distance, beautiful and terrible in its alien perfection. 25 years had passed since the quantum barrier first appeared around the solar system. The Sol system no longer looked like the peaceful collection of planets that had once been humanity's home. It had become something else entirely. Something that would have terrified the Council if they had truly understood what they were seeing. General Paul Hayes stood in the command center of Luna Base, built deep inside the moon's far side where the Council's sensors could not easily detect it. The base had grown over the years from a small military outpost to a massive underground city. Miles of tunnels connected weapons factories, training facilities, and research laboratories. The moon itself had become a fortress. "General, the Phoenix Project team is ready for your inspection," said Colonel Janet Brooks, his second in command. She wore the new uniform of the Solar Defense Force, black with silver trim that made every soldier look like they were ready for war among the stars. Paul nodded and followed her. Through the corridors of Luna Base, the walls were lined with screens, showing the status of humanity's war preparations. Every asteroid in the belt had been hollowed out and converted into weapons platforms. Mars had become one giant shipyard, its red surface now dotted with the construction sites of warships that had never been seen before in the galaxy. Even Earth itself had changed. Its cities now built around factories that produced weapons and armor for the coming conflict. They entered the Phoenix Project laboratory, a massive chamber carved from the moon's rock. Dr. Helen Burke looked up from her work as they approached. The scientist had been working on humanity's most important project for the past 15 years, and the results were finally ready to be revealed. "General Hayes, we've done it," she said, her voice filled with excitement and exhaustion. "The Phoenix Drive is complete and ready for testing." Paul looked at the device that might change the course of human history. It was smaller than he had expected, about the size of a car engine, but it hummed with power that made the air around it shimmer. "Tell me how it works, Doctor." Helen activated a holographic display that showed the drive's internal structure. The Council's faster-than-light technology works by bending space around a ship, creating a bubble that allows it to move without actually traveling faster than light. It's elegant, but it's also limited. And ours? Ours doesn't bend space. It breaks it. Helen's eyes gleamed with the satisfaction of a scientist who had solved an impossible problem. The Phoenix Drive tears a hole in reality itself, allowing a ship to step outside of normal space-time and reappear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. But that's not the best part. Paul raised an eyebrow. There's more? The process of tearing and repairing space-time releases enormous amounts of energy. Energy that can be weaponized. A ship equipped with the Phoenix Drive doesn't just travel faster than light. It turns the act of travel into a weapon. Colonel Brooks stepped forward, her military mind immediately grasping the implications. "You're talking about a ship that can appear anywhere and strike with the force of its arrival." "Exactly. Imagine a battleship materializing inside an enemy fleet and releasing all the energy from its jump as a weapon. The explosion would be more powerful than anything the Council has ever seen." Paul smiled for the first time in months. "How many ships can we equip with this technology?" We've been building the drives in secret for the past 5 years. We have enough to equip our entire battle fleet. Helen paused, then added, all 50 Titan-class battleships will be ready within the year. The general walked to the observation window that looked out over the hidden construction bay. Below them, the UES Retribution was nearing completion. The ship was massive, longer than any vessel humanity had ever built, and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. But it was not alone. 49 other ships just like it were being built in secret locations throughout the solar system. Captain Stone should be here soon for the final inspection, Colonel Brooks said. He's been chosen to command the Retribution. Paul nodded. Rick Stone was one of humanity's best officers, a man who had dedicated his life to preparing for the war that everyone knew was coming. He had been training with the new ship designs for years, learning how to fight battles that had never been fought before. They were interrupted by the arrival of Captain Stone himself. The man looked like he had been carved from stone, his face hard and his eyes cold. He wore the same black uniform as the others, but his had the golden insignia of a ship's captain. General Hayes, the crew is ready for deployment, Stone said. We've run every simulation, practiced every maneuver. The Retribution is ready for war. Paul looked at the 3 officers who represented humanity's best hope for survival. Are we really ready for this? The Council has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They have technology we can barely understand and fleets that number in the millions. Helen stepped forward. General, the Council's greatest advantage is also their greatest weakness. They've been at peace for so long that they've forgotten how to fight. Their ships are designed for exploration and diplomacy, not warfare. Their crews have never faced an enemy that fights back. And humanity? Humanity has never stopped fighting. We've been preparing for war our entire existence. Every human alive today has been trained for combat. Every factory on Earth produces weapons. Every child learns to fight before they learn to read. Helen's voice was filled with quiet pride. The Council wanted to see what we would become if they gave us time to evolve. They're about to find out. Captain Stone walked to the window and looked out at the Retribution. The ship is more than a weapon, General. It's a statement. When the Council sees what we've built, they'll understand that they made a mistake. What kind of mistake? They thought they could contain us by building a cage around our solar system. But all they really did was give us a workshop. 25 years to turn our entire civilization into a weapon pointed at their hearts. Paul joined him at the window. The Retribution was beautiful in its own terrible way, a ship designed for one purpose, to bring human fury to the stars. Its hull was black as space itself, and its weapons were integrated so seamlessly into its structure that the entire ship looked like a single enormous gun. The Council believes that violence is a primitive trait that intelligent species should evolve beyond, Paul said. They think that by giving us time to mature, we'll naturally become peaceful. And instead? Instead, we've become something they never imagined, a species that has turned warfare into an art form. A civilization where every citizen is a soldier and every factory is a weapons plant? Paul smiled grimly. They wanted to see us evolve. We've evolved into their worst nightmare. Colonel Brooks approached with a datapad in her hand. General, we're receiving reports from our monitoring stations. The Council's evaluation fleet is beginning to gather at the edge of the solar system. 300 ships from all 12 member species. Right on schedule, Paul said. 50 years to the day since they erected the barrier. They're coming to judge whether we've learned to be peaceful. Helen laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. They have no idea what they're walking into. Our hidden weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt are fully operational. The Titan-class battleships are ready for deployment. And the Phoenix drive will give us advantages they can't even imagine. Captain Stone turned from the window. General, the crew of the Retribution requests permission to take our position for the final confrontation. Paul looked at each of his officers in turn. These were the people who would lead humanity into its greatest battle. The people who would Either secure humanity's place among the stars or die trying. Permission granted, Captain. Take your ship and prepare for combat. As Stone left to board his vessel, Paul remained at the window with Helen and Colonel Brooks. The three of them watched as the Retribution's engines came to life, filling the construction bay with blue-white light. The ship was leaving its berth, for the first time heading out to join the rest of humanity's secret fleet. Do you think we can win? Colonel Brooks asked quietly. Paul was quiet for a long moment, watching the Retribution disappear into the darkness of space. The Council has spent the last 25 years watching us through their barrier, thinking they understand what we've become. They've seen us building ships and weapons. They've seen us training soldiers and developing new technologies. But they've never seen us fight. They've never faced an enemy that refuses to surrender, that turns every defeat into a lesson, that grows stronger with every challenge. Paul's voice was filled with quiet confidence. They're about to learn the most important lesson in galactic history, which is, never corner a predator unless you're prepared to face its claws. The Phoenix Project laboratory fell silent as the three officers contemplated the battle that was about to begin. Outside, the hidden fleet of humanity was taking its positions, ready to show the Council what 25 years of preparation had created. The evaluation was about to begin, but it would not go the way the Council expected. Humanity had evolved during their imprisonment, but not in the way their captors had hoped. They had become something harder, something more dangerous, something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The 50th year had arrived, and with it came the Council's evaluation fleet. Admiral Kevin Walsh stood on the bridge of the UES Sovereign, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Through the viewscreen, he could see the alien fleet gathering. At the edge of the solar system, like storm clouds before a hurricane, 300 ships hung in the darkness of space, each one representing thousands of years of galactic civilization. The Zephyrian flagship Eternal Harmony floated at the center of the formation, a massive vessel that looked like a living cloud held together by streams of energy. Around it, the ships of 11 other species formed perfect geometric patterns. That spoke of discipline and order. "Admiral, we're receiving their transmission," said Commander Lisa Park from the communications station. She had been chosen for this moment because of her steady nerves and clear voice. Today, she would help deliver humanity's answer to the galaxy. Kevin nodded. Put it through to all human ships and stations? Let everyone hear what they have to say. The main viewscreen flickered, and the image of Elder Vex Thanos appeared. The Zephyrian looked exactly as he had 50 years ago, his gaseous form swirling with the same colors of purple and gold. But there was something different in his voice now, a tone of absolute certainty that made Kevin's jaw clench. "Humans of Earth," the Elder began, his voice carrying across every ship in the human fleet. 50 years have passed since we erected the barrier around your system. 50 years for you to prove that your species could evolve beyond its violent nature. Today we have come to evaluate your progress." Kevin looked around the bridge at his crew. Every face showed the same mixture of anger and determination that had been building in humanity for half a century. These people had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment, training for a war that everyone hoped would never come but knew was inevitable. "We have observed your activities during this period," Elder Vex Thanos continued. "We have seen you build ships and weapons. We have watched you train soldiers and develop new technologies. This is not the peaceful evolution we had hoped to see." The Elder's form darkened slightly, and his tone became more stern. "However, we are prepared to offer you one final chance. Submit to our evaluation. Allow our teams to study your society and determine if you have truly changed. If you have learned to embrace peace over violence, you may be permitted to join galactic civilization as a junior member." Kevin stepped forward toward the viewscreen, his voice calm but carrying an edge that made everyone on the bridge straighten. "Elder Vex Thanos, I am Admiral Kevin Walsh, Commander of the Human Solar Defense Force. I speak for all of humanity when I give you our answer." The alien swirling form seemed to pause, as if surprised that the humans would respond so directly. Very well, Admiral Walsh. What is your species' decision? Kevin looked directly into the view screen, knowing that his words would be heard across the galaxy. Humanity rejects your evaluation. We reject your authority. We reject your right to judge us. His voice grew stronger with each word. You came here 50 years ago and told us we were too violent to join your galactic community. You built a prison around our home and threatened us with extinction if we didn't change our nature. And have you changed? The elder asked. Kevin smiled, and there was no warmth in the expression. Oh yes, Elder Vexthanos. We have changed. We have evolved exactly as you wanted us to. You wanted to see what we would become if you gave us time and motivation. You wanted to know if we could overcome our violent nature. Then you will submit to evaluation? No, we have overcome our violent nature by embracing it completely. We have evolved into something you never imagined in your worst nightmares. Kevin's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more threat than any shout. We have become united. We have become focused. We have become ready. The bridge fell silent as Kevin's words sank in. Even his own crew felt a chill at the cold certainty in their admiral's voice. This was not the desperate defiance of a cornered animal. This was the calm confidence of a predator that had finished preparing its trap. Elder Vex Thanos' form began to swirl more rapidly, and his voice carried a note of concern. Admiral Walsh, you speak of violence as if it were a virtue. This is exactly the attitude that convinced us your species was too dangerous. Too dangerous for what? For your peaceful galaxy where 12 species rule over all others? For your civilization built on the threat of extinction for anyone who doesn't conform to your ideals? Kevin stepped closer to the view screen. You want to talk about violence, Elder? Let me tell you what real violence looks like. Behind the human fleet, hidden weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt began to power up. On Mars, the shipyards opened their doors to reveal rows of warships that had been built in secret. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden military might began to reveal itself for the first time. For 50 years you have watched us through your barrier. You have seen us build weapons and train soldiers. You thought you understood what you were seeing. Kevin's voice was steady, but every word carried the weight of decades of preparation. You were wrong. Commander Park looked up from her station. Admiral, the Council fleet is beginning to move into formation. They appear to be preparing for some kind of action. Kevin nodded. They're going to try to activate the barrier's collapse sequence. They think they can threaten us into submission by preparing to destroy our entire solar system. On the view screen, Elder Vex Thanos' form had taken on darker colors. Admiral Walsh, you are making a grave mistake. The barrier around your system is not just a prison. It is a weapon capable of destroying everything within its boundaries. If you do not submit to evaluation, we will be forced to activate the collapse sequence. Go ahead, Kevin said simply. The elder seemed shocked by the casual response. You would sacrifice your entire species rather than submit to peaceful evaluation. We would sacrifice everything rather than bow to tyrants who hide their threats behind pretty words about peace and evolution. Kevin turned to address his crew. All ships, prepare for Phase 1. Throughout the human fleet, weapon systems came online and shields powered up. The Sovereign's bridge hummed with activity as the crew prepared for the battle they had trained for their entire lives. But Kevin was not done speaking. Elder Vex Thanos, you made a mistake 50 years ago. You thought you could judge us based on our past, force us to change by threatening us with extinction, and then expect us to be grateful for the opportunity to serve you as junior members of your empire. The Galactic Council is not an empire. We are a peaceful confederation. You are an empire built on the threat of annihilation for anyone who refuses to obey. You have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years by convincing other species that resistance is futile. But you made one critical error in your calculations. Which is? Kevin's smile returned, and this time it was filled with the anticipation of a hunter who had finally cornered his prey. You gave us 50 years to prepare for this conversation. 50 years to study your technology. 50 years to build weapons you've never seen before. 50 years to unite our entire species around a single goal. The Elder's form swirled faster. What goal? The complete destruction of your council and everything it represents. The transmission from the council fleet cut out abruptly, leaving the bridge of the Sovereign in tense silence. Kevin looked around at his crew and saw the same mixture of fear and excitement that he felt in his own chest. This was the moment that would determine the future of humanity and perhaps the entire galaxy. "Admiral," Commander Park said quietly, "sensors are detecting massive energy buildup from the barrier. They're beginning the collapse sequence." Kevin nodded calmly. "Right on schedule. Dr. Burke, is the Phoenix project ready?" From the science station, Dr. Helen Burke looked up with a confident smile. "All systems are green, Admiral. The quantum disruptor is charged and ready to fire." "Excellent. All ships, this is Admiral Walsh. Today we end 50 years of imprisonment. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you try to cage humanity." He paused, looking out at the Council fleet that was about to learn the hardest lesson in galactic history. "Today we teach the universe that Earth's children bow to no one." The barrier around the solar system began to pulse with energy as the collapse sequence initiated, but humanity was ready. They had been ready for 50 years, and now it was time to show the Council exactly what their test had created. The real battle was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The quantum barrier around the solar system began to pulse with deadly energy as the Council activated the collapse sequence. For 50 years, the beautiful shimmer of the prison wall had been a constant reminder of humanity's captivity. Now, it was becoming a weapon designed to destroy everything within its boundaries. Admiral Kevin Walsh watched the energy readings climb on his screens. In less than 10 minutes, the barrier would reach critical mass and implode, taking the entire solar system with it. But Kevin was not afraid. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since the day the barrier first appeared. "Dr. Burke, initiate the Phoenix Protocol," he ordered. Throughout the solar system, hidden installations came to life. On the dark side of the moon, in the depths of asteroid mining stations, and in secret facilities on Mars, quantum disruptors began to charge. These weapons had been built using technology reverse-engineered from the barrier itself, and they were about to turn the Council's greatest achievement into humanity's salvation. "Admiral, all Phoenix stations report ready," Dr. Helen Burke announced from her position at the science station. "Quantum disruptors are charged and locked onto the barrier's frequency." Kevin nodded. "Fire." 50 beams of pure energy lanced out from hidden positions throughout the solar system, all converging on the quantum barrier. The beams struck the energy field simultaneously, and something impossible happened. The barrier, which had withstood every attack for 50 years, began to crack. On the bridge of the Eternal Harmony, Elder Vexed Thanos watched in horror as his species' greatest creation came apart like glass struck by a hammer. The quantum field that had contained humanity for half a century shattered into billions of fragments, each one releasing the energy of a small star. "Impossible," the Elder whispered. "The barrier cannot be destroyed. The mathematics do not allow for it." But the mathematics had not accounted for 50 years of human ingenuity and desperation. The quantum disruptors did not attack the barrier directly. Instead, they attacked the fundamental forces that held it together, creating a cascade failure that spread across the entire structure in seconds. Admiral Walsh smiled as he watched the barrier collapse. "All ships, this is Admiral Walsh. Phase 2 is now in effect. Show them what we've built." Throughout the asteroid belt, what the Council had taken for mining equipment suddenly revealed its true nature. Hundreds of weapon platforms emerged from their hiding places, their surfaces bristling with guns that could crack planets. These installations had been built over decades, disguised as civilian mining operations while the Council watched through their barrier. The Council fleet found itself surrounded by firepower beyond their worst nightmares. Admiral Walsh had turned the entire solar system into a trap, and they had flown directly into it. "Elder Vextanos," Kevin said, opening a communication channel to the alien flagship. "You wanted to evaluate our evolution. Allow me to show you what 50 years of human development looks like. The first salvo from the hidden weapon platforms lit up space like a new sun. Plasma beams and quantum torpedoes struck the Council fleet before they could react. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were torn apart in seconds by weapons they had never seen before, but the real surprise was yet to come. Throughout the fleet positions, space began to shimmer as the Phoenix Drive came online. 50. Titan-class battleships materialized simultaneously in the heart of the Council formation. Appearing from nowhere like ghosts made of metal and fury, Captain Rick Stone stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as his ship completed its first combat jump. Around him, the Council fleet was in chaos as human warships appeared among them like wolves in a flock of sheep. The aliens had been expecting a defensive battle. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives against an enemy that could appear anywhere at will. All weapons, fire at will, Stone ordered. Show them what human engineering can do. The Retribution opened fire with guns that had been designed to fight enemies with superior technology. Plasma cannons tore through. Alien shields like they were made of paper. Quantum torpedoes phased through the Council ship's armor and exploded inside their hulls. In the first 30 seconds of combat, the human fleet destroyed more ships than the Council had lost in the past 1,000 years. Elder Vex Thanos tried to rally his scattered forces, but the human attack was beyond anything in galactic military doctrine. The Phoenix Drive allowed human ships to be everywhere at once, striking from impossible angles and disappearing before the aliens could respond. It was not a battle, it was a slaughter. All Council ships retreat to safe distance and regroup, the Elder ordered, but it was too late. The human ships moved like a pack of hunters, cutting off escape routes and picking off stragglers. What had started as an evaluation mission had become a nightmare. Admiral Walsh watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. Every tactical move had been planned and practiced for decades. Every weapon had been tested and refined. Every ship captain knew exactly what to do. This was not just a military victory. It was the culmination of 50 years of human evolution. But Kevin was not finished. Opening a communication channel that reached across the galaxy, he began to speak. His words would be heard on every world, by every species, in every corner of galactic civilization. This is Admiral Kevin Walsh of the Human Solar Defense Force. For 50 years, the Galactic Council has held my species prisoner in our own home. They judged us too violent, too dangerous, too primitive to join their peaceful galaxy. Today we give them our answer. The transmission continued as human ships continued their devastating attack on the Council fleet. Elder Vex Thanos' flagship was cut in half by a plasma beam from the UES Sovereign. The crystalline ships of the hegemony were shattered by quantum weapons that turned their diamond hulls into dust. The swarm ships of the hive mind were hunted down one by human vessels that moved faster than thought itself. We are humanity, Kevin continued. We are the children of Earth, the survivors of 1,000 wars, the inheritors of a world that tried to kill us from the moment we first drew breath. You wanted to see what we would become if you gave us time to evolve. You wanted to know if we could change our violent nature. The few surviving Council ships tried desperately to flee, but human ships appeared in their path like phantoms. The Phoenix Drive had given humanity the ability to control the entire battlefield, to be everywhere and nowhere, to strike without warning and vanish before retaliation was possible. We have evolved, Kevin said, his voice carrying across the galaxy to every species that had lived under Council rule. We have become something you never imagined. We have become united, we have become focused, we have become ready, and most importantly, we have become free. The last Council ship exploded in a ball of fire, marking the end of the evaluation fleet. In less than 3 hours, humanity had destroyed a force that represented the combined military might of 12 galactic civilizations. The impossible had become inevitable. The age of the Council is over, Kevin announced to the galaxy. The age of humanity has begun. We are coming for every world, every system, every species that supported your tyranny. We are bringing the fire that forged us, and we will not stop until every trace of your empire is ash." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. For the first time in thousands of years, the Council's iron grip on galactic civilization had been broken. The species that had ruled through fear and threat of extinction had been destroyed by the very people they had tried to contain. Captain Stone looked out at the wreckage of the Council fleet floating in space. "Admiral, what are your orders?" Kevin smiled as he looked at the stars that had been forbidden to humanity for 50 years. Those stars were calling to him now, no longer barred by alien law but open to human exploration and conquest. "Captain Stone, prepare the fleet for deep space operations. We have a galaxy to liberate." As the human fleet began to move beyond the boundaries of the solar system for the first time in 50 years, Kevin thought about the Council's final mistake. They had wanted to see humanity evolve, to become something better than they were. They had succeeded beyond their wildest fears. Humanity had evolved into the apex predator of the galaxy. And now, finally, they were free to hunt.